Do you want to become financially independent? In this video, I'm going to teach you the 12 steps I use to become financially independent and retire at age 35. Also, I'm going to show you at what point you can retire, along with the one thing that you must do to become financially independent and retire early. I promise, if you skip through it, you're going to miss the boat, so be sure to stick around. And by the end of the video, you're going to have real, actionable things that you can do today and get started. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Rick Orford, author of The Financially Independent Millennial. And if you like videos about this sort of topic, now is a great time to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. When I was younger, I made pretty much every financial mistake in the world. And despite working harder and making more money, I never felt like I was getting ahead. For example, every time I got a raise, I'd go shopping for that thing I was needing to buy. Or I'd go on an expensive vacation, and once I even bought a better car. Do you know somebody that can relate to this? If so, go ahead and like this video. It'll give me a sense of how many people are struggling with the same problem. Now, before I get into it, this video is brought to you by thefinanciallyindependentmillennial.com. It's a website where you can learn how to save money, make more money, invest, and become financially independent and retire early. When I was younger, one of the things I often dreamed about was winning the lottery. Can you relate? Other times I think, if only I made more money, and then I could someday quit my job. Unfortunately, hopes and dreams don't work unless there's some form of actionable goal. The fact is, you don't need to win the lottery or get a raise to become financially independent. Yes, it certainly helps, but for how long? I mean, we've all heard stories about lottery winners who ran out of money shortly after winning. So, what do? To become financially independent, it's essential to know the difference between passive and active income. Active income is the money that you earn from a job that you're actively involved in. For example, if you go to work every day, the income you make from that is called active income. Unfortunately, you're limited with how much you can make in a day. On the other hand, passive income is the income you earn without actively being involved. It's the money you make when you sleep. So, you see, becoming financially independent requires that you have enough passive income to live on. And passive income is the income you want to have. Examples of passive income include dividends from stocks, interest from bonds, rental income, royalties, and so on. Even your own business can give you passive income if you don't play an active role in it. For example, if there's a manager that takes care of most of the duties, then the profits could become your passive income. So you see, it's important to have a passive income to support you in retirement, because passive income is the key to financial independence. So, how do you generate passive income? Well, many people think that in order to become financially independent, they need to make a lot of money, or get some sort of big windfall. But here's the thing. Becoming financially independent isn't about earning more money. It's about spending less money than you earn. That's it. Just spend less than you earn, and whatever is left over is your monthly surplus that you can use to achieve your goals. It's really that simple. But the fact is, too many people spend way more than they earn. So how do you fix it? Well, the first thing you'll want to do is confront the problem head on and start tracking your money. Sure, you might know how much money is coming in and from where, and you probably know exactly at what time the money will arrive in your bank. But do you know how much money exactly that you're spending every month? And on what? The best way to get started generating a monthly surplus is to track the money on a spreadsheet. You can get started by looking at your last 3 months of income and expenses and organize it on a spreadsheet. By the way, I've included a link to download the spreadsheet for you to follow along with in the description below. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and download it and open it up, this would be a great time to do so. So, as you can see on the Start Here tab, I went ahead and I pre-filled 3 months of income and expenses in columns C, D, and E. And the average gets calculated in column B. These 3 months could be the last whole months of income and expenses. Now, when it comes to credit cards and lines of credit, Just include the minimum payment in the needs section. The minimum payment is all we need. For instance, if you paid $480 from your checking account to your credit card, but the minimum payment was only $50, count the $50 and not the $480. Then, if you spent $300 on clothes, write $300 on clothes in the clothes section. And if you spent $200 on restaurants, well, you get the idea. And go ahead and do this for the last 3 months. And when you're done, you'll have an average for each expense in the average column. And then at the bottom of the spreadsheet, you're going to find your surplus. Or if it's a negative number, a deficit. We don't want that. For sure, generating a monthly surplus is one of the most critical parts of this video. And if you made it this far, go ahead and give yourself a big pat on the back, because seriously, you've done more than most. So stick to the plan, and I'm sure you can totally get yourself to a better place financially. Now that you know how much is left over, if anything, at the end of the month, the next step to become financially independent is to increase that surplus. Of course, if you have a deficit, meaning you spend more than you make, well, you're going to want to go ahead and turn that into a surplus right away. Your instinct might be that you have to get a better job, or a promotion, or work more, but it's not going to work. The simple fact is, it doesn't matter if you make $50,000 a year or $150,000 a year. Unless you spend less than you earn, you're never going to get ahead. The easiest way to increase your monthly surplus is to just reduce your expenses. It's as simple as that, and you can start right now. Then, once you're generating the surplus, you can use the extra money to pay down debt, build an emergency fund, or even use the money as a down payment for a new home, but not a new car. Now that you have the spreadsheet set up with at least 2 to 3 months of expenses, we need to look at where we can cut out some of those expenses. And the first thing you need to think about when cutting expenses is to figure out your needs and wants. Needs are things like food, rent, your mortgage, utilities like electricity, and so on. And wants are all of the things that make us feel like we're keeping up with the Joneses, like going out to restaurants and clothing and expensive holidays, and even that expensive German car parked outside. These are what I call financial independence killers, and my favorite way to start cutting expenses is to just dive right in and slash the want side. Start with shopping and restaurants, and set a goal of cutting those categories by 50%. For instance, in this example, someone spent nearly $675 a month on restaurants. Think about cutting that in half. And then think about ways you might be even more successful in doing so. For example, could you bring food to work or for lunch? Or could you make coffee at home and bring it with you outside? And when it comes to shopping, ask yourself, next time you're thinking about buying something, do I really need this? And can I live without it? Once you have all of your average and some ideas on where to cut, go ahead and make that your starting point and fill them in on the Family Budget tab. These becomes your goals. For example, if you set a $200 restaurant budget, well, don't spend more than that. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter if you make $50,000 a year or $150,000 a year. Unless you're spending less than you earn and generating a monthly surplus, you'll never achieve financial independence. And cutting expenses may be the single easiest lever you can pull to generate that surplus. But what happens when you can't cut anymore? Well, you're going to need to increase your income. And the simplest, easiest way to increase your monthly income is to get a side hustle. I suggest side hustles as a temporary way to achieve a goal. For example, goals can be paying off debt or creating an emergency fund. But remember, the side hustle is just one lever you can use on your path to becoming financially independent. And you don't have to rely on it forever, because when you're financially independent and retired, you want to rely on your passive income, not work. By the way, here's a video that talks about the best side hustles that can add an extra $1,000 a month to your surplus. So what's a side hustle? Side hustles are a part-time job. For example, some side hustles can be done from home, and others need for you to go out and work. Some side hustles include teaching something online, like English, or driving for a ride-sharing company. But whatever you do, make sure you turn a profit and put 100% of it towards your goal, like getting rid of that high-interest debt, or creating an emergency fund, and so on. By the way, have you ever wanted to start a business on the side? Go ahead and feel free to give me a comment below, because I'd love to hear about your ideas. Once you've got your first surplus, you'll want to take a look at your emergency fund. Your emergency fund is money set aside if worst comes to worst. For example, you might have lost your job or had a significant and unexpected expense. Don't they always happen at the worst time? The emergency fund should be in cash, in a savings account, but don't touch it unless there's a real emergency. And one thing the pandemic taught us is that we all could do with a little more in our emergency fund. I know I sleep well at night with 6 months of my needs expenses. And remember, needs are those things like rent and mortgage payments, insurance, and so on. But it doesn't include wants like new jeans, because those would be cut out anyway in an emergency. By now, you should be generating some extra cash at the end of the month, and that's your surplus. Start by transferring that surplus at the end of every month to your emergency fund until you get that 6 months of necessary expenses. Once your emergency fund is fully funded, now you can start by gathering all your balances on your credit cards, lines of credit, car loans, and all of the high interest debt you might have. If you downloaded the spreadsheet, you can see that I started to fill this out in the debt tab. I think the goal ought to be start by paying off the account with the lowest balance, not the account with the lowest interest rate. As for the other cards and lines of credit, just pay the minimum payment. This is known as the debt snowball method. Paying off the account with the lowest balances means that you get a quick win. It builds your confidence, and I think you'll more than likely stick with the program. And why not give yourself a quick win? In the example on my spreadsheet, with the debt snowball method, I would start attacking credit card number 1 because it has the lowest balance and it can get paid off in the quickest amount of time. Then, once you have that one paid off, you'll have an instant feeling of accomplishment, your monthly surplus will be higher, and then you can use that to pay off your next credit card. Now, what about low interest debt, like under 7%? Well, if it's a structured loan like a mortgage or a car loan, you can pay it off monthly as the loan requires, and the loan payment just becomes an expense on the need side of your budget. By now, you've worked on reducing expenses, creating a surplus, started paying down debt, and you're doing fantastic. And one of the things you might be surprised to know is that your credit score will have likely improved. It's true. As long as you're not making late payments or applying for more credit, your credit score will have likely improved. Did you know that 65% of your credit score is calculated from your payment history and the amount of debt that you have? As you pay down debt, both your payment history and the amount of your debt improves, and your credit score goes up. By the way, here's a video that lists all of the things that you can do today to improve your credit score. And why is this important? Well, lenders look at your credit score as a risk factor when deciding whether or not to give you a loan. Also, it has a huge factor in deciding your interest rate. In other words, a higher credit score means paying less interest. And paying less interest means a higher monthly surplus. So we're coming towards the end of this video. And remember earlier, I told you about that one thing you must do if you'll ever become financially independent? Well, this is it. After you've paid your debt, saved up your 6 months of expenses in your emergency fund, and optimized your income, you have got to invest your monthly surplus each and every month. And you can invest in many different things. For instance, you can invest in a rental property, or in stocks that pay dividends, or even an index fund. But whatever you do, I recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor to best assist with your investments. Now, you might be wondering, when will I be financially independent, and when can I retire? Well, in order to become financially independent, you need to first know your financial independence number. Once you've saved up enough, you could be financially independent and could retire early as I did, but the key is knowing how much. Your financial independence number is the number you'll need to know to get a general idea when you'll be financially independent. Now, here's how to calculate it. Your financial independence number is just your monthly expenses times 300. That's it. So, say your monthly expenses are $4,500 a month. Then the amount you need to become financially independent is $1,350,000. This money will need to be invested safely, maybe with a combination of long and short-term bonds. Then the dividends become the passive income you'll live on, thus making you financially independent. But as with anything, you'll want to seek out a licensed financial advisor for that personal financial advice. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to watch the next one to learn even more about financial independence. In the meantime, take care and feel free to reach out on my website or go ahead and leave a comment below. Bye guys!